Amiibo. Little figures that collectors do this with and everyone else does this with. The Amiibo brand was started back in 2014 along with the release of Smash for 3DS and Wii U as a way for Nintendo to jump in on the Toys to Life craze. But instead of investing into a whole game dedicated to just the Toys to Life concept, Nintendo took a different approach by having most of their games compatible with Amiibo, giving you little bonuses for using them in-game. But the question is, are Amiibo worth it for people who don't want to fill their shelves with random knickknacks? Probably not, but hey, who knows? So today we are going to look through what kind of in-game bonuses you get for owning overpriced plastic. The first series Amiibo had major compatibility with was Super Smash Bros. And their function in the games hasn't really changed at all since their introduction, and yeah, it made total sense to have Smash introduce Amiibo. The characters are already turned into figurine-like statues in the games, and there were so many characters you could use which would give the figures mass appeal. But as far as their functionality in-game, yeah, it's kinda lame. The Amiibos act as CPUs that are extremely stupid at first, and it is your job to train them up as your student and teach them all of your tricks. But also, as you level up the Amiibo, it also gets boosted stats, which means that it can do more damage or take less than a normal player, which I feel kind of defeats the point. Like, this thing isn't strong because I taught it all of my best strategies and moves, it just has an unfair advantage. And then your reward for training up your Amiibo is just having a strong CPU that you can take with you somewhere. Like, I'm sorry, but nobody's going to think you're cool because your level 50 Bowser Jr. Amiibo beat them. If I was playing Smash at a friend's house and someone pulled out an Amiibo instead of just playing the game themselves, I would probably give them a few weird looks. This isn't the worst bonus they could have come up with, but also I don't really see the appeal. It might be fun to mess around with for a little while, but after that, it gets pretty boring. But this was the first series to introduce Amiibo support, so it probably got a lot better after this, right? So I feel like from this point onward, Amiibo basically served one purpose in the games they were in: give you funny costumes to use. Like, the first one that comes to mind for me is Mario Kart 8, where you can unlock special racing suits for your Mii based on what Amiibo you had. You know, you could get a Kirby suit, a Sonic suit, a Mario suit. Yeah, no, I don't want to play as Mario. I want to play as my Mii with a Mario suit on, got it? These really didn't offer much difference to gameplay or anything, but hey, they look pretty nice, so I won't complain. Let's see, some other games that come to mind are like Yoshi's Woolly World. You could get some cool skins in that game. Sonic Yoshi is pretty funny to me. Amiibo were a pretty big deal in the original Mario Maker. You could unlock a lot of costumes with that, and those were always really fun. I remember people always wanted to add little stories based on other characters in their levels, so the feature was definitely used creatively. Not all of the costumes were tied to Amiibo though. You could get quite a few others by doing these little challenge levels, and that was always fun to do. Sadly, these were taken away in the sequel, not exactly sure why. We did get like the Master Sword power-up, which was really cool, but I still wish they had brought back the Amiibo support. It was just a fun little bonus in the first game. I remember in Miitopia you could get some costumes for your characters, which was cool because if you wanted one of your characters on your team to be Mario, you could put him in a little Mario outfit, so that was a fun little addition. One series I am surprised that never really hopped on the Amiibo train was Pokemon. Obviously they had the Smash Amiibos, and there was that really big Detective Pikachu Amiibo, but other than that, the only thing I can remember is like this Shadow Mewtwo Amiibo card that came with Pokken Tournament. It basically just allowed you to unlock that character earlier than you usually could, which was kinda cool, I guess. It's just strange to me that Pokemon never did like a line of Pokemon cards that were also Amiibo or something like that. I mean, I don't think that's too crazy of an idea considering they turned cereal into an Amiibo. But I mean, yeah, except for maybe unlocking some things early or just giving you costumes, the only other thing Amiibo really did was occasionally give you bonus items, which I mean, that's fine, but it's not worth like $15. Once again, Amiibo really are seeming like they're more and more just for collectors, and they definitely are nice collector's items. As the years go by, Amiibo are looking nicer and nicer. I mean, you got some of the early ones with the weird plastic supports holding them up, but as time went on, they definitely figure out how to make these things look nice. I don't have a whole lot of Amiibo, but from the ones I do have, my favorite probably has to be the Mario and Bowser Amiibo from Mario Odyssey. They just look super nice and detailed, and it's almost like you pulled them straight out of game. I also absolutely love the Yoshi's Woolly World Amiibo. These are by far the most unique Amiibo, and they haven't really made anything like them since, and I really wish they would. Imagine if we got a Kirby Amiibo that looked like this. That would be awesome. Okay, but back at the topic at hand, I'm still trying to find a reason for non-collectors to buy these pieces of junk. And I think really the only reason they would is if a game required them to. There has to be some game out there that absolutely requires you to have Amiibo to play, no questions. Okay, hear me out. So alongside the release of Skylanders Superchargers, we got 2 Amiibo exclusive to the versions of the game on Nintendo platforms that also worked as Skylanders. This means that these Amiibo not only unlock the usual Amiibo stuff like costumes and bonus items in your favorite Nintendo games, but also gave you brand new playable characters in a mediocre game from a then dying, now dead series. But you don't have to use the Amiibo, you could just use any of the other 1,000 Skylanders, so no, this one really isn't an Amiibo exclusive game. But that's where Mario and Friends Amiibo Challenge comes in. You use your Amiibo to gain access to exclusive levels made for the specific character you scanned in. This game is a lot like one of those Mario vs. Donkey Kong games that Nintendo just wouldn't stop making for a while there. It's fine, nothing really all that special, but hey, at least this game can only be played if you have Amiibo at your disposal. If you don't have any Mario Amiibo, you can get this weird looking guy by just using any other random Amiibo. But in all reality, this game just isn't really that fun for me. It's super basic and generic and definitely isn't worth buying Amiibo for. Okay, so maybe Nintendo didn't want to lean too far into the Toys to Life market. I mean, that makes sense. Nintendo didn't want to alienate fans just because they didn't want to buy their plastic figures, and that's almost honorable in a way. They can offer these cool collectibles for people who want them, but for everyone else who doesn't necessarily want that stuff clogging up their shelf space, they don't have to buy them. Maybe that was the point. Maybe Amiibo were never meant for anyone but collectors. This way, Nintendo would never have to deal with Toys to Life dying out, like a lot of other companies that delved into the practice did. So at the end of the day, maybe it was a good thing that Nintendo never made a full-priced game that required you to use Amiibo. What? You know, I don't like hating on games just because it's popular to do it. I usually want to at least experience it in some way and give it a chance. But I have recently played this one, and this game isn't just bad. It's barely a game. So imagine you were playing Mario Party, except there are no mini-games during gameplay at all. You basically have one board to play on. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. This game is such a slog, I don't know how this was ever approved for release. If they wanted an Animal Crossing game on Wii U that promoted Amiibo, they could have just ported New Leaf with the Amiibo update and maybe a few new features, since this game basically just reuses assets from that game, just upscaled to HD. I just don't know why this, of all games, is what they decided to go with. I mean, genuinely, the gameplay consists of rolling dice, and that's about it. And since you had to have Amiibo to play this game, and they wanted you to remember that, you have to use your Amiibo figure to roll the dice each turn. You can't just press A to do it, you have to get your Amiibo and flick it like the idiot you are. To give the game a little bit of credit, there are events that can happen that change up the board a little bit or allow you to get some kind of special advantage, and this stuff would be cool if it wasn't the only thing to do. And it's not like this game doesn't have minigames. It does. You just don't get to play them during the board game. For some strange reason, the minigames are separated into their own separate modes, even though I think they would have done a great job splicing up the gameplay during the main board game mode. Like, all they had to do was add a minigame at the end of each turn, and the game would be a bit more engaging. But even if they did add this, there still would have been the problem of the board being so boring. You get one board to play on, it never really changes, and there aren't any NPCs or event spaces to change things up. You are always just moving forward aimlessly with no end in sight. Now, luckily, you can put time limits on these games, or else they would last over an hour, and that just sounds like torture. This game just feels so empty, which sucks because you can see a little bit of potential while playing it. I don't think this game could have ever been some kind of masterpiece, but I do think with a little more work, it could have been a decent party game. But instead, it's not that. It's a bad party game. So now looking back on it, Amiibo never really had a good reason to get them other than wanting a fun toy on your shelf. So I mean, if you're not really into that kind of thing, yeah, these are pretty useless.